Welcome to Project Play's Game Review. Dragon Age Inquisition. Now, as a warning to this review, not scripted, obviously, because I would be appearing much more professional if it were scripted. I did write a script, not using it. It was awful. But another warning is I love this game. All right, so you're going to get a pretty good review of it. But then I'm not going to give it a number. I'm not going to give it like an 8 out of 10 or anything like that, because I feel like going to the numbers is pointless, because people then just skip the whole review and they're like, oh, 8 out of 10, I'll buy it. No, numbers don't measure a game. It's the content. So we're going to focus on the content of the game. First thing you should know about Dragon Age Inquisition is it is far above its predecessor. Dragon Age 2 definitely does not measure up. Now, Dragon Age Origins, they're about on par, I feel. Now, I haven't played Dragon Age Origins all the way through. Okay, no one threw anything. But it was good. But I have played Dragon Age Inquisition all the way through once, and then I played about 2/3 through a second time, and now I've started a third playthrough. I'm a bit obsessed. First time I played as a warrior, second time as an elf. Now I'm playing as a warrior again because I found out I like that class. But let's get into the meat of the game. Now, what's the plot of the game? Well, the plot of the game basically is there's a breach in the sky, basically a giant hole, green glowing hole where demons are falling out. Your man, your character or woman, happened to be at the Ground Zero event. And through whatever events that your character can't remember, he suddenly has the ability to close this breach and the rifts that happen throughout the world. Now, rifts are basically giant crystalline structures that also drop demons. They're like smaller versions of the big one. So your character is then placed in a level of importance for the newly established Inquisition. The Inquisition is established because the Divine, basically this world's equivalent to the Pope, was killed. So without the church, or chantry as it's called, to guide the world, a new order has to rise, so the Inquisition is established by the two hands, the right and left hand of the deceased Divine. They ask for your help, you give it, and you have to close the rift. That's basically the plot of the story, as you're introduced at the beginning. And there will be no spoilers in this. So it's pretty easy to grasp. So I like that, easy plot. Now, actual build. So your character is you or whoever you want them to be. You can make them look however you want. Now, the creation is incredibly detailed for a console. I played on PS4. I did not get a chance to play on PC or Xbox One. But Xbox One and PS4 were similar from what I know. But they're so in-depth. Skyrim is the only one I could think to measure it up to, and I think it even beats Skyrim. Now, it's a little brighter than Skyrim, so if you like more of the dirt and grit that Skyrim brings, well, you're still going to want to stick to Skyrim, because this game is a lot brighter than Skyrim was. That's not to say it's a bad thing. I love color, and there's plenty of it in this game. One fault of it, though, is elves have no facial hair. Now, that's probably something to do with the lore of the game, so I'm not going to count it against the game. I just like to have a beard as an elf, you know? I don't get that option. Character interaction. Character interaction it's good. Going into this, not having played Dragon Age Origins much, and playing very little of Dragon Age 2, enough to know that I don't like it, I didn't quite grasp the dialogue wheel. The only reason I got it at all is because I'm a huge fan of Mass Effect, and I've played the holy shit out of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3. So I grasped the general concept of some things are better than others, but the thing is, in Mass Effect, blue equaled good answer, red equaled bad answer. For the most part, pretty easy to grasp. This game does not have that. This game has a star for special, a dialogue you may not have the option to use if you hadn't gotten a previous perk of some sort. Then there's the thumbs up, which is usually your character's agreeing with them. Then there's the warrior symbol, where you're just being stoic and hard and steadfast in your decisions and such. Now, I only know what these symbols mean because I looked a wiki article up explaining each one. The game doesn't actually tell you what they are, so you're kind of at a loss on deciding what to say. The actual interaction with the characters, all the voice acting is on par. It's amazing. It's really good. Nobody really loses a beat. None of them are really boring. There are a couple that I didn't have interest in, but that's personal preference, not performance. They all did what they were supposed to do, and they all did a fantastic job at it, so there's not really much more to say on that. I gotta touch on the romances if we're gonna talk about character interaction. The romances are a tad disappointing. Now, I will say I haven't done all of them, alright? I don't play as a female character in these games, I always have to be a male character. I'm not the kind of guy who can play as a girl and feel invested in the game. That's not to say I have anything against people who play as girls who are guys and vice versa. It's just to say I can't, it's not my play style. So I didn't, but I did explore both of the straight male romances. They're good, but again, I come from Mass Effect, and I by far prefer the romances in Mass Effect. They feel much more in depth, they feel much more dynamic. This game does have great conversation pieces, and there are great moments where you're going to be smiling or you're going to be happy about what happened. And if you're someone who really likes romances, this isn't to say that this is a bad game for it. I just don't feel like BioWare put as much effort into the romances as they have in the past. There are several characters in this game that would have been fantastic as romance options that for some reason they did not include in the game. Combat. Really good. It's great combat. It's dynamic. It has both of the combat systems from the original games. So it sort of pulls a little bit from Origins, where you get the top-down view, strategic view, where you can tell which character to attack, who, what to attack them with. Or if you want them to take a potion, you can take command of them and tell them to take a potion. However, there is a spot in the menu where you can tell them if your health hits, let's say, 30% or lower, automatically use a potion. And on top of that, you can then say, when we hit 2 potions, use them only when I tell you to. Because you don't want them to just automatically use up all your potions, and when you need them, you're like, whoa, where are my potions? So there is a good dynamicism to that, but there are limitations. We'll get to those in a second. First, they do pull from Dragon Age 2 when it comes to the combat as well. You can ignore your characters completely. You don't have to go into that dynamic upper view. All you have to do is really have their moves already ready to go in their set. And then you just attack and your NPCs will take care of themselves. They are rather competent. That's a good thing. I love it, and they don't get mixed up like Skyrim. In Skyrim, when you have someone following you, if you go up a mountain that you're not necessarily supposed to go up, your NPC will get really confused and will like run circles around the mountain trying to find the correct path in order to meet you back up. They don't do that in this game. I love what they do. You could take whatever path you want or are capable of, really, and the characters following you will be there. Now on to environment. The environment's gorgeous. Alright, now it's one huge map. Okay, basically you go into the map and you got a huge map, but there are subsections within the map. You have, let's say, a place called the Emerald Graves, you have another place called the Hinterlands, and each of these places you can go to directly and fast travel and walk around within. However, you cannot go to them. Skyrim is one huge map. This is one huge map with pieces that you can go within. Each of those pieces are huge. It takes several minutes to walk from one end to the other, especially with all the things in the middle. There are quests upon quests upon quests to do. Some are very tiny and annoying, while others can become much bigger than you expected and be very interesting. They did a great job with diversity of terrain as well. There are sprawling deserts and little oases, and there's these huge green forests, big open fields, mountains, seashores, marshes with undead. They did a great job when it comes to diversity of terrain, and I loved every second of it. Again, only downside to this, you are very limited in how you can get to places. So if you want to establish a camp, which is something you could do to make fast travel points within a location, you establish a camp for your Inquisition. Let's say that a location that you can make a camp is on top of a mountain. What do you do in Skyrim? You most likely get on a horse and up. You can't climb near as much in this game. There's much more limits to that. You try and go up a slope, you'll slide back down. And on top of that, the falling damage is pretty punishing in this game. Probably a 4-foot jump takes out about 100 damage of health. Now, when you get to the higher levels, that's not much. But when you're in the lower levels, if you drop 4 feet in the middle of a combat, that can make or break that battle. Because you're not really thinking about what height of terrain you're on when you're sort of surrounded by mages or Templars slashing the hell out of you. Another nitpick in the game, from the moving from place to place in the map, is the loading screens. The loading screens are pretty atrocious. Loading screens start out interesting. They have these sets of 3 cards each time, and by cards I just mean these little pieces of information where you'll see the visual representation of the card, and right next to it you'll see the text. And you could read a tidbit, maybe from a book within the game, or it may be a song, one of the amazing tavern songs that get played in this game.
We plead, we'll be a faithful and decree where a man will not not retreat from the defeat.
The thing is, these cards only stay up for about 10 seconds. And then it cuts to black screen and just sits at black screen, loading, then it loads up. I don't understand why. I don't know why they couldn't have just kept it as the cards were the loading screen the entire time. Maybe it was a processing issue where they had to have black screen so the game wasn't focused on that and could focus on the loading. If that's the case, they should just cut the cards out, because it's like showing you something you could have had and said, look at this. Look how interesting this could have been. But it's not. Now, there's another piece of this game that I haven't mentioned about the movement mechanics. You can get a horse, or in some cases, a very huge mythical looking elk, which I was excited about when I found this, because I thought, that looks like the elk from Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. I must have this. And I bought it. The only problem is this game does not encourage you to use it whatsoever. Your character does move faster on a mount, but the terrain is interesting enough. You don't really want to just blast through it, but also not enough faster. It's a horrible sentence, but you don't move faster enough to really justify just getting the horse. The thing is, as I said, these locations in the map in Inquisition are huge, but they're not big enough to justify a horse, really. You can get to most places pretty quickly by walking, and there are plenty of fast travel points within these locations that you can just fast travel and take about a minute to walk and get there. So again, opening up that little menu, selecting horse, having the horse get to you, getting on your horse, then riding there just feels like an unnecessary set of steps, as opposed to opening map, fast traveling, and walking. But again, it's a bit disappointing. It doesn't really pull the game down. There are twists and turns in this game that will keep you coming back. The ending of this game, awesome. Alright, I loved it. The cinematics in this game are gorgeous. Now, strangely enough, the game does lock the cinematics at 30 frames per second. I don't know why. Feels kind of laggy, especially on the PS4. I ran across several problems with this. Actually, a couple times in conversations that were pretty pivotal to the game. And by pivotal, I mean you cannot not do them. You have to talk to this character. The game would freeze. The character would say his line and then stare at you and do nothing. There's an option to skip dialogue with square. I don't know what it is on PC, I'm sorry. But it doesn't always work. You'll hit square, hit. Found myself freaking out multiple times thinking, I have not saved in a while. What's going to happen if I have to turn this off? Now, it does fix itself after a while, but you have to sit there for quite a while for it to finally figure out, oh crap, I need to be doing something. On the subject of saving, this game has an awesome autosave feature. It saved my ass so many times where I would be invested in the game for several hours and I'd be playing and then I'd realize, oh, shit, the game froze. I haven't saved in like 3 hours. It seems to autosave like every 5 minutes or something, because it always had an autosave almost exactly where I was when the game either froze or I died or whatever. On the subject of freezing, I only crashed 3 times, but again, I'm not sure if that's the game or if that was the PSN. 3 times in a game where I've spent so many hours playing. I don't care. It was fine, and again, the autosave, right where I was, no problem. So it really isn't that big of a deal. Another small feature in the gameplay is something called the war table. Now, the war table is where you and your advisors pick out missions for them to send their agents on to do. It's sort of reminiscent of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, I believe, where you tell your assassins to go out and assassinate someone or gather information or something. But also, like Brotherhood, you don't really feel the effect it has. Now, you can gather influence through these missions, and this influence then gives you the ability to justify on going on big missions. Like, there's a mission where you have to go meet royalty. I won't tell you what royalty. You have to go meet royalty, but you have to have both enough power and influence to justify being important enough to meet this person. Now, that has an effect, and the war table does justify that. However, when it comes to, like, let's say there are a couple missions where you would gather forces or gather coin or specific missions, you don't see that affecting the game. I don't see it if you don't do these missions. You go to the final mission. If you have a different ending or not, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem that way because I don't see any outward effect to the world. Not to mention the fact that the final mission doesn't really utilize your forces at all. You are basically alone in the final mission. Now, you are not actually alone, but again, I'm not going to go into any more detail than that because I don't want to spoil anything for you. 2 last points that I feel necessary to bring up. 1, the end game after the credits feels empty. After the ending of this game, things reach such a head. They get so peaked at the end of this game, playing after the credits feels worthless. There's like no dialogue at the end of the game. You've pretty much probably used up all your dialogue, and even if you haven't, I'm pretty sure that the dialogue you would have had the chance to do during campaign is gone now because it's irrelevant. You beat the game. You beat the main mission. They no longer have to talk to you about it. So the dialogue's dead. There's no one to talk to anymore, which makes the world feel immediately empty. You don't really want to do small little subquests now that you've done every big quest. Doesn't feel like you're working towards anything anymore. Feels like worthless busy work. So after credits, not really worthwhile. Last point, game really does lean towards axes and maces when it comes to your warrior class. The bows are pretty even. The staffs are progressively get better, but again, those are just one weapon type. In the warrior, you get sword, axes, and hammers, and maces. One-handeds lean very heavily towards axes and maces. By the end of the first playthrough, I was using an axe, but I want to use a sword. I love swords. Swords just feel way more epic to me personally, but there's no sword that could possibly match the scale of power that you get through axes and maces later in the game. There is a crafting system that allows you to put on runes on there to give different effects like poison or magic damage or anything like that. You can also use different materials you find in the different subsections of the maps that allow you to build that sword out of a different material. So you can use iron, drakestone, bloodstone, lots of different things you can use it for. And the cool thing about that is then it changes the color. So let's say you use drakestone. Drakestone would probably make it red along with bloodstone. Iron makes it look silver. Obsidian makes it look more black, and each of those stones will give it a different feature. So Drakestone might give it +3 constitution, while Obsidian gives it +3 damage. Building armor is the same way. For the warrior you use metals as well, but for rogue you use mostly cloth like wool and silk. Silk will give it a sheen, silvery look, while wool will give it a simple look. You can get plaid. Plaid is like a material. It's kind of funny. Plaid literally gives you a plaid look. I feel like I've hit all the bases that I want to hit. And again, I'm not going to give this a point value because I feel like this game cannot be summed up in numbers. No game can be. It's kind of unfair to put every single game to the same point value. I will say it is definitely worth buying at full price if you want to. If you're still unsure, get it on sale. But you have to play it at least once. If you're a fan of RPGs, if you've played Skyrim or the previous Dragon Ages, you must play this one, especially if you played Dragon Age 2 and lost a little bit of faith. This game pulls you back in, and especially a guy like me who lost a lot of faith in BioWare. Get this game, play it, you won't regret it. Thank you for watching this review, and I hope to come out with a lot more soon. I know this one was late, but please, stick around and enjoy many more to come.
And that's why you're walking so funny. I thanked him a few times. Then later, he thanked me back. It was a very grateful night all around.
They don't need to know I'm not wearing pants. There's the whole point of having the camera above my waist is that I can not wear pants while doing this.